Hey, Musa, can you hear me?
Oh, 1 second.
Okay.
There it is. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good deal. All right.
Awesome, man. Yeah. So already live. I was playing some music while we were waiting in the in the background and everything.
Good deal.
But yeah, thank you for coming on, man. No, I really appreciate it. Hope everything's been well with you. Definitely, I'll catch up with you after the call since we're
For
starting a
sure.
little bit late here.
For sure. For sure.
But yeah, so thank you everybody for joining us. So what we're doing here is a startup ecosystem podcast, essentially, and what we're essentially talking about are different sections within the startup ecosystem, how they all play a part. And this is all part of our company, Founding Titans. Founding Titans is a community-focused relationship optimization platform, and we're building that to help pre-seed to Series A startups with finding the right connections and resources for their businesses. And so today we are talking about strategic partnerships with big tech companies and going over a bunch of critical things such as, the elements for successful partnerships with tech giants, strategies for navigating corporate cultures and building long-term relationships, as well as the insights on leveraging the ecosystem to actually accelerate your growth. And we have one of my good friends here, Musa. Go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So once again, appreciate you having me here to help support the Founding Titans. This is great. Hello, everyone. I can't see anyone but Gabe, but I'll speak to everyone that's in the audience or listening. My name is Micah Pellerin, nickname Musa, from New Orleans. I'm not going to give you my life story. Right now, I work at Microsoft in what's called the High Tech Partnerships team. The best way to think about that team is that we've been given the unique opportunity, to leverage the entire Microsoft ecosystem to drive strategic collaborations between unicorn companies and Microsoft. So what does that mean? Because collaboration, partnership is obnoxiously vague. It literally means the entire Microsoft ecosystem, as I referenced earlier. So that could mean investment support from a corp dev, from a CVC perspective. So that's M12 for us. That could mean integration support for some of our first party products and platforms. That can also mean go to market support with the Azure Marketplace and other co-sell opportunities. That also extends into the integration opportunities as well. We have different mechanisms there and everything in between. And there's a lot more in between, but I just want to keep it simple for the beginning right here. Prior to Microsoft, I worked at 3M. I was on the buy side. I was an investment manager at 3M CVC, where I invested in like Industry 4.0 type of technology. So think edge compute within a warehouse manufacturing space. Also did some powertrain work for cars. Before that, I was a corporate strategist at 3M. And my party trick is, prior to all of that, I played in the NFL for 4 years. I wasn't that good. I only have one more tackle than most of you all watching, assuming there aren't a bunch of NFL guys paying attention to this. And yeah, that's my story. Appreciate you having me, Gabe.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for coming on again, and thank you for that background. I know we were talking before because initially this conversation was going to be just centered around mergers and acquisitions, but we kind of shifted the focus after talking a little bit more, and you were like, "Man, that's only about 5% of everything." Like we got to make sure that we go a little bit deeper for everybody, which I appreciate. And I'm sure a lot of the other people that are going to be viewing this live as well as viewing and recording later are really going to appreciate as well. And so, yeah, thank you for that context. And so, yeah, let's just hop into everything, man. So let's talk about the strategic partnerships first between, the startups and like how do they build these strategic alliances? So, what are the key elements of a strong partnership between a startup and a big tech company?
Yeah. So I'll speak to it from the company side, and then I'll hopefully try to speak to it from the startup side, and kind of help share how these things come to be. So from the company side, Microsoft, obviously, we have a swath of products and technologies that we're leveraging, right? So one of the things that we really value is that we pride ourselves in, better said, is that, hey, we're a partner first, right? So to the extent that you want to work with us, we're willing to work with you to help fulfill whatever it is that you're trying to do. And it's in that process that we can support whatever existing technologies that you have, right? We exist at the bottom of the stack, and in some cases we can exist at the top of the stack. So if you have a podcast that you're working on, and you're working on captioning and highlights and things of that effect, we have speech to text, text to speech technology, and so forth and so on. We have GPUs that can support any sort of like advanced AI needs you have, what have you. So we look at partnership from that angle, to say, okay, how can we add value to what it is that you're doing, right? And that's like the first throw, right? Is to say, is there an opportunity independent of just leveraging, Azure and the cloud? Is there an opportunity to say, hey, this is an area where said company can leverage Microsoft's technology in a unique way to, advance their position, right? From a startup perspective, I think, what do they say? To be clear is kind, right? And to the extent that the company is very organized and has a strong understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish and develop, they can leverage in my case, obviously Microsoft, but the big tech ecosystem in general, to say, hey, we have best in breed in said technology. We need support with this element of it, right? And become a part of the ecosystem. So that's where the conversation starts. So for me, I'm not selling something in a transactional way, right? It's not a linear sell or partnership, right? It's a little bit more expansive to that. And it works well when both sides have a clear vision of, hey, we have these products and technologies. We'd be interested in companies that do XYZ. And said companies are saying, hey, we're doing this. We could use a partner to help, amplify our voice, or, infrastructure, what have you. And the two come together.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I mean, that's a lot of the things that we think about on our end. Because I mean, I don't know if anybody knows. I mean, some of you might, but we have 19 partnerships ourselves. A lot of them are
Right.
affiliate relationships. Some of them are more in depth on technology and integration
Right.
partnerships. There's a lot of different things that we're doing on our end just to sort of tap into different aspects with the
Mm-hmm.
business. And I mean, there's different ways that, like you were saying, that people can go in, even with, sponsored capital, just
Right.
straight up, offering resources, a bunch of
Right.
different options there that I think a lot of founders actually don't know about. And we'll get into some of those as we go through as well. But let's jump into the next part of that. So, like, how do you manage and maintain those relationships and partnerships over time to ensure that they actually remain mutually beneficial?
Yeah. So, and this is where, once again, having a sense of order or structure around how you're thinking through your roadmap, your technology roadmap, right? And not just your technology roadmap, but your business model roadmap, right? You might have an IaaS solution, then it might turn into SaaS. Then you might want to go to market through channel partners. Then you might want to go direct. As those things evolve, what's important is, you start the relationship, right? So find whatever commonalities there are. It might just be free credits to start off with. Have a point of contact, have a POV, and say, hey, we're interested in, we saw that you have this program, right? Said program in your area of interest, your area of expertise. We'd like to participate in this program. As a consequence of that, that program involvement, you might then become exposed to a product group, and being exposed to a product group, there might be some synergies there. So what it really comes down to is maintaining that level of communication and staying top of mind within said ecosystem, whether it be a big tech company or just another company that you're partnering with in general. So that way, when opportunities arise for you, they can speak to those opportunities for you without you being present, right? And what happens over time is, as the relationship starts to develop and both sides start to see value as the relationship yields value, then some of those more exploratory, some of those larger scale opportunities start to manifest.
Yeah. I mean, that scales all the way into a lot of different aspects in relationship building, just period, right? I mean,
Right.
being able to actually articulate what somebody else is doing and making those side connections and facilitating those is really how, those people that actually ended up being, a Fortune 500, Fortune 2000 company got to where they are today because they didn't just use their immediate network. They expanded it out through the people that they were actually speaking to. And so it's really kind of vital for every single company to actually go down that path and make those inroads, because also, the same things that you're doing at pre-seed are not the same things that you're going to be doing at Series A, or Series C or, Series G, whatever it is, right?
Right.
It evolves as you continue to raise and as the business evolves as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
And so let's jump into the next part here. And so let's talk about the go-to-market strategies that, you had mentioned a little bit earlier. So, what are the critical elements of a successful go-to-market partnership between, a startup and one of these tech companies?
Yeah. And I think this is the business school answer is it depends, but I'm giving you an answer. Outside of that, when it comes to go-to-market, I think oftentimes, especially for digitally native companies, there's an inflection point, particularly if you're not D2C, right? So if you're a B2B SaaS company, there's a finite, depending on your solution or product set, there's a finite number of customers within your TAM, right? Now there are upsell opportunities, product innovation, et cetera. I recognize that. But when we're talking about just pure play, door to door, increasing the customer base, there can be a finite number of customers. So what we find, in my area is that, once companies reach a certain point, so you're in that Series B, Series C, and that isn't as important as saying, the company is starting to get valued in the 9-figure range. Scale takes on a different meaning. Your CAC takes on a different meaning. Your go-to-market, I mentioned earlier, innovation in the go-to-market strategy, that takes on a different meaning. And for us specifically at Microsoft, what we have is, a marketplace, but we're not the only ones with it. AWS has a marketplace, Google has a marketplace, and it's a channel through which you can sell your solution, right? So what you can have, right, not something that you'd always have, but what you can have is a situation where Microsoft is working with you to sell your solution to your target customers, right? And what that does for you is it gives you an advocate. It gives you an ally in the go-to-market process. Some of the vetting associated with being a startup. A lot of that through brand recognition attached to, going through Microsoft's marketplace or another hyperscaler's marketplace is going to give credence to that CIO, that CTO from another company to say, you know what, we're going to leverage this technology. Not only are we going to leverage this technology, but from a procurement perspective, we're comfortable with this marketplace and we're going to expedite the process to ship out that PO and make sure, we put the money in their pocket. So that's where a lot of the value add is. And within, these hyperscalers and these marketplaces, there are specific BDs and that are specific. And when I say BDs, business development groups that are catering to said, segments of the industry, whether it be healthcare, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be finance, right? And so you can get that sort of nuanced support to help you, advance your cause and reach a lot more of those enterprise customers in a way that makes sense for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely love that. Thank you for the depth. I know it was kind of an interesting question to ask because, it really does vary based off of industry and space and, exactly what everybody's doing and what they have or have not done already previously with their companies. But thank you for kind of laying that out a little bit for everybody that might be a little bit lost on those concepts. And so, you know, how should startups prepare internally before actually, working on more of those partnerships with the big tech company?
Yeah, I think the best marketing is success, right? So get really good at whatever it is you're doing, and naturally, eyeballs will attract. But I think more specifically, I don't, we talked about it a little bit earlier, identifying the use cases in which said product groups from whatever hyperscaler or big tech company in general you're interested in um, is can leverage identifying that the avenues of connection between your tech stack and theirs, or your go-to-market strategy and theirs, right? And really petitioning to them, this sort of partnership. I think makes a lot of sense, because one thing people discount is these product groups, I mean, they have their own targets, goals, and incentives. They want to partner. They want to test, especially vendors, right? They want to test and make sure that their products work. So to the extent that you can leverage their product and be effectively a brand ambassador for their product, I mean that will not only ingratiate you to the product group, but also once again the ecosystem. So when we talk about, it's a full circle moment. When we talk about building our relationship within a big tech company, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. No, no, that makes perfect sense to me, man.
Mhm.
And also for anybody that may have any questions going along the way, definitely throw them in the chat. We'll be reviewing those as well as they come up. And so, let's see. Yeah, so let's talk about leveraging the actual ecosystem in and of itself, right? So,
Mhm.
how can startups leverage the broader ecosystem, especially with these, major tech giants to accelerate their growth?
Yeah, I think this this goes back to being really specific and clear about a what it is that you're offering to whom, why it's uniquely valuable, and then on the go-to-market side, which is kind of what we're referencing, making sure you have the right alignment within said hyperscaler to help execute against that vision and or goal, right? So what happens a lot of times is, companies will enter a marketplace, and their requirements, whether it be technical, whether it be logistical, around like, hey, we'd love for you to be here or there, what have you. And sometimes startups don't invest the necessary resources and or attention in those sort of what might feel like menial or elementary processes. But as a consequence of that, they don't engender like good faith with the with the company, right? In this case, we're talking about hyperscalers, and that can have a trickle down effect. So it's important that you're engaged, attentive, responsive, aggressive, as you're engaging, to signal that said company is clear in their vision for the company, what it is that they're trying to do. We can now match, once again, we talk about being top of mind and alignment. We can now match what it is that they're interested in, what it is that we have currently and in the future, to help it work that way. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I guess there's another thing that we may or may not be able to dive into because it is a little bit more broad as well. But I do
Sure.
want to try to see if we can ask it. So, for the opportunities that exist with startups collaborating with multiple teams within a major company, like say, when you're initially offering your product offering, you get started with maybe one small team within that overarching organization. How you are able to find that initial team and then also branching out, further. Like I know there are some companies that I've even made introductions to where, like I guess like somebody going in and talking to like Google for startups or Azure first, but
Right.
then obviously going out into that broader spectrum within these major companies because most of them don't just own one small section. They own, a broad range of different, companies and different categories that all kind of melt together really well.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, if I understand your question correctly, it's just like how to build the network internally, and leverage like the full ecosystem even more.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, you know, companies need to take into account as they're engaging, right, is the fact that, hey, we have this specific use case. There's like like you're starting off credits and things of that effect, and then there are programs associated with that. The sort of relationship and partnership that I'm talking about, that I think is really beneficial for a lot of startups is more so on the product side. The go-to-market side, you can that can happen, that can work, right? Obviously, but the product side, once again, remember these hyperscalers, not just Microsoft, but across your Fortune 5, they want people to use their products, right?
Yeah.
Like there are
Exactly.
people internally hunting for people to use their products, to validate their products, to provide feedback for their products. So to the extent that, once again, you can petition internally with whoever your point of contact is, hey, um, I'd like to meet with such and such individual. That's one way. You could also, I mean, LinkedIn's an amazing tool. You can get on ChatGPT and say like, hey, draw up a a quick paragraph for me to work with said product group for this reason, right? Blah, 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 blah. It'll spit some out. You tell this is terrible. You can continue to fine tune it. You can send messages out that way. There are also conferences where you can catch some individuals of those teams. It might not be the engineers on the product team, but for sure, probably some of the business development members, the individuals that are out hunting for new opportunities for the product team. So those are some of the ways in which you can circumvent like being pigeonholed to just we're leveraging free credits, and then after that we don't know what's gonna happen next. Those are some ways you can go around and through different alleyways to get to where you want to go, need to go.
Perfect. Yeah. No. Thank you for diving into that as well. And so let's talk about the
Mhm.
investment side, which I'm sure a lot of the founders in the
Sure.
audience are a little bit more curious about. So, what are the key factors that you consider on the investment side? Because I know you also worked with like 3M and some other companies as well, so it doesn't have to
Yeah.
apply directly to Microsoft.
Yeah. So investment on the CVC side is different than pure play VC side, right? So you maybe can make the argument that VCs are, while not exclusively, but primarily financially motivated around some sort of financing event with whatever company they invest in, right? So they go public, they get acquired. That's what they care most about, right? CVCs, or corporate venture capital groups, are a little bit different. And there are a number of different ways in which they act. Some act independent of the parent company, some act as a biz dev arm or an R&D arm for the business, et cetera, et cetera. But one one common thread you'll see with most of them is that there are a lot of synergies between their investment thesis and the overall biz dev narrative of the company, right? So once again, when we talk about building relationships, when we talk about investment opportunities, the CVCs are going to look for, in some instances, they're going to look for the opportunity to realize the value of their investment in a partnership immediately, right? So they might invest they'll probably invest with the understanding that we're going to incorporate this technology into our tech stack, or we're going to sell together, or we're going to white label this technology and sell it, or we're going to take this existing technology and include it into our tech stack, right, through some sort of joint development agreement, et cetera, et cetera. Um, these are these are the different ways and mechanisms in which you'll see corporate venture get involved, right? And we talk about, once again, the inflection point from a sales perspective. A lot of times that brand attachment and the ability to sell with, right, adds a lot of value to the startup, because now you have a partner who's mutually invested, particularly on the CVC side, to ensure that hey, we're going to help. And not only that, they have an existing brand, presumably in a field of interest or similarity to the startup. So that's how I answer that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a multitude of different ways, and you've kind of given the general overview on it. But I mean, just to give some specific examples, I was actually just on a webinar earlier with Kurt Walker out in Las Vegas with 40 Fusion 42 in Tech Alley.
Hmm.
And he was actually speaking about some of the different types of capital, including sponsor capital, CVC, and basically there's 60 different versions of capital that startups can really grab. It's not just looking at the venture side, but also, the different nooks and crannies of everything. Like one example that he brought up was, one startup that I was working with, Michelin. And
Hmm.
basically they were building sensors for, tires and all these other things. And
Yeah,
basically in their own dealings saying, hey, with these guys' sensors, they're like bundling it into the deal with something
exactly.
that already is being utilized. And
Exactly.
so, they ended up growing their, revenue to, 8 figures essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And just with that
Yeah.
one partnership with one of those major tech companies. So it isn't just, the capital that gets in the door. Right. It's also, a lot of these other aspects and inroads, that we're talking about. And
Right.
so, it's not really cut and dry as well. So that's why I know some of these answers might seem like, like direct or like definition wise, but it's really
Mhm.
is case by case basis. And like
Yeah.
there are so many different variations that
Right.
this can really go in,
Right.
especially like even for us, like we're talking to, certain people right now for utilizing our, platform and white labeling and all these other aspects. And
Mhm.
it's completely different for us talking to, major company A versus major company B
Right.
versus, late stage startup that we're,
Right.
talking about working with as well.
Right.
So there's not really one set path. It's sort of like a choose your own adventure more than anything else is what I would
Exactly.
say. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, and we kind of answered some of the other questions that we had here. So let's kind of skip down a little bit to, the impact on the market right now. So how did changing market conditions affect some of the partnership strategies for these startups, and how can the founders adapt?
Mm. Well, I think the macro. Good.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like things turning into more of a traction
Yeah.
based market right now and a lot of other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think earlier the thought of this convo was such that we were gonna talk about M&A, and I think everyone here on the call can recognize and identify that there hasn't been a ton of M&A activity, right?
Yeah.
So between the Fed and the the SEC, there's so many different the SEC, there's so many different regulating bodies that are now taking a closer look at investments. So the M&A opportunity that maybe existed 10, 15 years ago is not the same. Um, and to that end, I think it's reset the market a little bit, right? Like if you go online and you ask how many unicorn companies are there, it'll tell you there are over 1,000 unicorn companies, right? Or something to that effect. And it's like, are there really 1,000 companies that are worth over $1 billion that are solving different problems in a differentiated way and so forth and so on? So when you think about you know your respective companies, I think the number one thing you want to do is have a solid business. I mean, the days of blitzscale and just kind of continuing to grow and saying, all right, we're growing with no attention to the bottom line. I think those sorts of companies we've already seen, with respect to interest rates, and while capital not necessarily drying up, but capital not being deployed in the same way as it was year over year the last couple of years, we're recognizing that businesses now have to find ways to be more profitable, right? So it then becomes an operational question as to what is in the best interest of your company to operationally thrive and succeed. Because ultimately, that makes you much more attractive to, while not maybe the hyperscalers of public markets, but when you think about the private markets and your PE shops who are always going to be active, um, they're gonna peek into the fundamentals, right? They're gonna peek into that income statement and recognize that, hey, this company is doing a great job of growing, margin positive, great innovation around not just the product offering, but also their go-to-market strategy and things of that effect. We talked about the value add associated with going to market with a hyperscaler, or in the Michelin case, a legacy brand. And it's the reduction of SG&A and COGS on sales, right? And that's invaluable when you think about what that excess capital cash can be used to do, right? As far as new FTEs, so new employees, new tech, etc., or just building a war chest for acquisition opportunities and the like. So when I think about the macro environment, I think it's refocused and repurposed the idea of profitability in the mind of a lot of different operators. So that's where my mind is right now on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you said there, and it kind of creates this gap at pre-seed, from what I'm saying, to where like there are some of these companies that do need a lot more capital intensive projects. I mean, even similar to ours, but I actually know a lot of other startups that are probably pre-seed to Series A, especially hardware companies, to where you need a larger upfront amount of capital to actually build things out. Especially with like a lot of AI companies, right? Like if you're building out your own LLMs, you're doing some of these systems, it might not be immediate for you going the VC route, but you can do some of these strategic capital methods for and this doesn't just apply to big tech companies. This applies to also government agencies,
right?
A bunch of other things. I know a founder personally that they got a DoD deal for about $25 million. And they're sitting pretty for a while, right? Like to where they completely shifted their startup from and this is in the aviation space, so obviously contract deals are a lot higher, but they don't need 50 different clients. Obviously, it would be very beneficial, but they are tailoring it towards this specific group. And then essentially, once that contract runs out, whether they renew it or not, they can pivot that technology into a larger space, but they have the budget to build.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And also the key point that I wanted to hit on too is you said 1,000 unicorns, right? And I don't think everybody realizes how many 1,000 really is, right? Like I don't think the difference between a million, a billion, a trillion, like for dollars, like the gaps in between those, as well as what 1,000 unicorns really means. There are 150 million startups globally, y'all. Just we run the data on our end. Actually, that metric came from Microsoft, by the way.
There it is.
In case you know that. And so, every company can't be a unicorn, but there could be a huge amount of companies that get to a certain point where it's 100 million or 25 million or whatever it is, and still be successful. But you're not necessarily venture backable. That does not mean you can't go and do these corporate partnerships or do all these other things. And also, most of the time, maintain a huge amount of equity. Like for equity, you don't like some of these major tech companies don't really care about, taking a huge portion of equity because you're giving them data or technology or something else that is 1,000 times more valuable than them taking 5 to 25% of your company. They don't care about that, right?
No.
Depending on the level of relationship. Like at the end of the day, it's like you also evaluating those partnerships and those conversations and figuring out, okay, why do they want to work with me, right? What is the benefit or value add that I'm providing? And it doesn't just have to be, anything that's surface level. It might be something that, you might not be able to see right off of the bat, but just actually listening while you're having these meetings and conversations that can actually evolve everything, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so another thing that that you mentioned before was integration, right? So, what are the challenges that, startups often face when integrating their products or services into one of those larger tech platforms?
Not as
I mean, there's also be a technical side too.
Yeah, there are tons of companies. I'm not going to shut anybody out, but there are tons of companies that literally do just that, like help with integrations. And once again, typically the larger the platform, the easier, especially the relationship between like an early stage startup trying to integrate into, a late stage product or platform, I mean, it's a lot easier. It's not as difficult as it used to be, and a lot of times you can leverage some third party consultant or something. I haven't seen a lot of issues there, but um, yeah, I haven't seen a lot of issues there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's also great to know as well. I
Mhm.
mean, I normally hear more things that are difficult in the early stages, but once they actually get everything set up or the relationship established,
Mhm.
as long as you're doing the right things, it's pretty cut and dry for especially those integration conversations.
Well,
Um,
there's a lot of literature out there that speaks to like step by step, how to go about, making the changes, right? So I mean, not the changes, but how to go about the integration process. So that's also beneficial. I forget what the name is for, but yeah, this is basically it's a white paper that says do this, you need this, so forth and so on. It's escaping me, but yeah.
Yeah, if you remember that white paper, definitely send me that. I'll send it over to the people that have viewed this as well.
Yeah.
And so let's shift into corporate culture fit, which
Hmm.
may or may not matter to certain companies, right? But how can startups effectively navigate the corporate culture structure for some of these large tech companies? And what advice do you have for startups building the relationships? When navigating those culture fits.
Mm. Is it? Yeah, I think a lot of times when people talk about culture, they make it such a large. They're speaking to like the entire organization, but the truth is,
Yeah.
you're usually working or interfacing with maybe what 10, 20 people max, right, in a given week. Um, and that's the culture. Whatever that is, that's the culture. I mean, you can suss it out in the interview process, but you don't know it until you know it. There's also an opportunity for you to help inform the culture through your attitude, actions, and performance. Um, and so it's such a unique thing. I think there's no right answer to it because everyone's motivated and inspired differently. And I think to the extent that you don't recognize or you're not in alignment with the culture, I think identifying like what elements of it do you not agree with, and then identifying like how you can support not having to how to mitigate that, I think is critical as well. So it's really on the individual, I feel, to reconcile what the culture is and isn't, and then how they can inform the culture, develop and improve the culture to make it better. Because oftentimes you're still, once again, within but a small subset of the larger corporation, which means you have, orders of magnitude more impact on, what you perceive to be the culture than you would if you were to think of yourself as like but one person of like a 50,000 person org, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, how
Yeah.
I view it as well. And there's a reason why I asked that question because I like there is no right answer, right? How I
Right.
go about it is completely different. How you go about it is completely different. But that also ties into the personalities of the individuals you're talking with,
Mhm.
because for those individuals, um, like take one of the deals that we're working on right now. Like we've spoken with three different heads of departments, right? One of them absolutely loves it. Two of them are like, I don't think that this would make any sense. Like it, and
Mhm.
basically talking about it from a data
Right.
standpoint. But the person that's actually over the data portion of the company is like, oh yeah, there's no data issues at all. Like this is actually
Right.
really great, makes total sense. And so it's like getting the buy-in from the right
Right.
people. And like, there's always going to be gatekeepers. It doesn't matter
100%.
what the company culture is. It doesn't matter, what the level of conversations like. And that's why building these relationships is so important, because having that evangelist or those few evangelists in these major companies is the same thing as having them in a smaller corporation as well, where, at the end of the day, you just need to make sure that the right people get it and can go to bat for you when there is some type of shift, or there might be something that could hinder the deal or whatever else it is. It's just somebody that's able to advocate for the business and talk about you and your character. Because also that's why everybody talks about YU. YU does
Right.
not just work on the VC side. It also works for literally every business relationship that you're going to get
Facts.
involved with. Yeah.
Facts. Yeah. It's so nuanced though, and I think also too. I think people can become prisoners of the moment, right? And in like the arc of your life and career, I think what's also important is to just recognize like there are going to be uncomfortable moments, right? And what's the greater purpose of whatever it is that you're managing, right? Like, is it to say like, are you going to let something that's bothering you about oh, I don't like structurally how we're organized from a hierarchy perspective. I don't like how we have to go through this process to execute like to get some sort of something back to the customer, fill in the blank there. And it's like, yeah, okay, you might not like this part, that little part, or that little part, but no job or career is perfect. Even the one you start for yourself, even if you want to be an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? There are limitations with that as well, right? Nothing's ever like fully customizable. So yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I know that we're about 5-10 minutes from being done here. I don't know if you're able to stay a little bit longer or not, but if not, then I'll go down the list a little bit faster here too.
Yeah, I can answer
Uh,
a question.
yeah. So for and these are just some of the regular ones. Also, everybody, if you have a question, definitely make sure you actually put it in the chat too, and shoot it off to me so that I can actually see it on my end. But yeah, let's talk about the for the final question on everything, and then we'll talk more about like your personal journey and everything like that. But I
Sure.
want to wrap this up on a potentially a good note here. So, what is some additional advice or common mistakes that you see with early stage companies as they try to build these relationships out, and how can they avoid some of those pitfalls?
Definition, right? Like, it's hard to, if you play basketball, it's hard to make a shot if you're not looking at the goal. I think a lot of early stage startups, one is you also have to understand, the concept of leverage and how you can apply it, right? And it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, right? Product groups, they're looking for ways to, showcase like, hey, our product are being leveraged by some of the best startups in the world, right? And startups are looking for ways to, engender themselves with these large scale companies to, for top line reasons, right? Obviously, to say like, oh, we can make more money, but also, the added brand value being associated with a hyperscaler that can have the impact that can have on your cap table as well. Um, Understanding what you have in your toolkit to leverage, understanding what gaps the other side has to leverage, and matching those two, right? Like the idea of a partnership is that there's supposed to be some sort of symmetrical exchange, but that's not the truth, right? Like one side's giving up a little bit more than they want, the other side's giving up a little bit more than they want, and that's what it is, right? In full transparency. And the better a startup can say, this is exactly what we're trying to do. This is why we're uniquely qualified to do it. This is why you're the perfect partner for it. The more concise that story can be, it just de-risks the probability of it not working.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that as well. And so let's talk a little bit more about your personal journey and your transition into venture capital. So I mean,
Mhm.
something that I didn't initially know off the bat, but you had a professional sports career before
Yep.
everything as well, and so uh, you also have a podcast called
Yeah.
what is it called?
Something like the
Something
off
like the
season.
off
Yep. Yep.
season. Yeah,
hmm
exactly. And so. Can you share, your journey from, the NFL to venture capital? What were the biggest challenges and how you overcame those?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for anybody and anything is always in the mind, and that's not to be super esoteric or whatever. But it's just a mindset. It's understanding that the more the more, one thing, I really appreciate about football is you learn the more nervous you are about something, the more aggressive you might need to be. Right. And I'm just speaking for myself, my own personal attitude and philosophy. In football, if you're really tentative and shy when it comes to like engaging and contact, that increases the probability that you get hurt. Right. In the same way, if I'm really concerned and or nervous about something on the VC side or about anything in life in general, it just means I need to learn more. I need to ramp up my education. So for me, the hurdle was, just like I said, breaking that mind barrier, and over time, just being super obnoxiously persistent. It was able to work for me where I was afforded the opportunity to work with 3M and then do things on my own and consult and things to that effect and invest in that way. But a lot of it, man, just comes from being aggressive around learning. And the more you learn, the more comfortable you feel about everything working out, right? So that's where it starts and stops. Hopefully
Yeah,
that
no, I
helps
mean,
everyone. Yeah, if you're feeling anxious or nervous, just be active. Get active. That'd be my recommendation.
no, I love that, man. And I used to play football as well, not on the level that you did, not even close. But like the transition from sports into business, which I know you talk about on the podcast a lot, is like just invaluable, right?
Yeah.
That ability to, tie that bloodthirst or that hunger into
Yep.
your day to day operations, being able to actually control that and focus it in the right areas.
Right.
Actually, a lot of the most successful guys that I know, played some sport,
Yeah.
at some point, right? Like, especially even one of our advisors, Ronnie Green, which I know,
Yeah.
as well. Like the fact I didn't even know he played ball either. That makes so much sense. like, and so, just that the way that a lot of those things factor in, it's
Hmm.
it's something that if you've done it before, you can kind of observe that, and also
Hmm.
learning from those other individuals. Like one individual that
Right.
I personally look at consistently, and rest in peace, is Kobe Bryant. Right,
Yeah.
like the motivation that man had is absolutely diabolical in the best way,
Yeah. Oh,
and
100%.
being yeah, and so it's like tying yourself to mindsets like that, it can only improve your odds of
Oh
being
yeah.
successful in your ventures.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
agree.
and
I agree. It's so much of it about it's like action and persistence, right? Like it's so annoying to hear. Like it's so annoying. Like I'm sure people are like, "Oh my God, of course, that's what he's gonna say." It's I don't know. I didn't want to say it because I don't like the way it sounds, but that's what it is. And just being super comfortable. No, and once again, this is another cheesy line as well. Just being super comfortable knowing that however you think it's gonna shake out, it's not gonna shake out that way.
yep,
Exactly. There are gonna be tweaks, and just staying obnoxiously persistent and saying like, all right, cool, boom, we still punch, we still
yeah.
punch, we still punch, and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, persistence is key. I mean, look at Notion as a company, right? Like
Yeah.
they started out with, building like web development
Yep.
software, right, for building websites,
Yep.
and now it is a completely different platform. And what they were doing initially would not have gotten them to the point that they are today, right?
No.
I mean, they are, like the same technology that was being utilized, just a completely different adaptation of it, turning it into $1 billion plus company, right?
Yep.
And that's exactly being able to pivot and being willing to pivot. And
Right.
the CEO and some of the other founders talk about that consistently. With
Yeah.
they did not want to actually make that change,
Yeah.
right? And then once they
No.
finally did it, exploded, right? Hell, we've made
That's
our pivots. Everyone, I hated doing it,
come
but
on.
it's only made us better.
Come on. So yeah, man, that's where it starts and stops, man. I mean, that's the beauty in trusting the process and just trusting in how it'll manifest itself into your life, right? Which is to say it's never going to manifest itself the way you envision it. It's going to be a different version of it, but it doesn't make it any less beautiful. I mean, it makes it even cooler because I'm sitting here talking to you. I didn't know poop from sugar when it came to Excel, when it came to VC, when it came to big tech, just applying, just keep trying. I took the GMAT, like it's all these things, just being super consistent and persistent.
Yeah.
There it is.
No, I mean, yeah. So it's similar things on my front, like being able to just keep applying all of the failures and like I know I'm gonna sound cheesy as well here too, but what is it called? History repeats itself,
There it
right?
is.
The ability to learn from not only the mistakes of others, but learning from your own mistakes as
Mhm.
well. Like, this is my third startup. This is my co-founder's third startup.
Come on.
Like I've like, and
Whatever.
also all exits aren't like amazing or spectacular, right? Like, hell, my first startup had an exit. Was it for a crazy
Mhm.
amount of money? No. What, did I still make a profit? Hell yeah. But
Mhm.
like very minimal, right? But at the
Right.
same time, like I even talking with our own advisors, thinking about like, I'm going to discount it or whatever. Like I was telling people I was a first time founder, and one of our advisors said, no, like if you're a third time founder, tell you're a third time founder. That's just credibility for you. And I'm like, but
Exactly.
those are
You know what
relevant. Like,
not
and
to do.
talking through what those startups were. And she's
Yeah.
like, no, exactly. He's like, you know what not to do.
There
Like,
it is.
and it was like, and you're still going to make mistakes. There's not a single business that hasn't made mistakes. I mean, they're industry giants that if some people look at the early stages of of the current AI, because AI has been around for a very long time, but
Mhm.
with people displaying their AIs in public, right? Like,
Right.
which is something you should never do with a technical company. Like, hell, a lot of people made those mistakes, and those things didn't really work very well. And so it's like it doesn't even matter your size; you're going to make mistakes, right?
Right.
And
100%.
so it's just making sure you learn from those and then applying those mistakes. And basically turning those into successes. It's not like how many
Right.
times you get knocked down; it's how many times you apply what you learn to get back up,
I agree.
right?
I agree. Well
And
said, brother.
yeah, thanks, man. But yeah, this. So one last question, and then we'll go in with the closing. But so for aspiring VCs, because I see a huge amount of VCs that are actually starting to emerge now, which is great. And so, what advice do you give individuals that are looking to transition into venture capital, especially those coming from non-traditional backgrounds?
I, venture capital is like is a seductive asset class, right? Like it's VCs dressed like rappers and stuff, right? And so it's like it's really interesting. It's really interesting now. I'd say learn how to run a business, like understand gap accounting, managerial accounting, understand the foundational tenets of running a profitable business, right? The risk adjusted, the opportunity or the probability that you'll have a company that sells 1,000x, that goes 1,000x, whatever, is low, right? But that doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. But understanding how a business runs will afford you the opportunity to help people create sustaining businesses. In which case, there are other financing opportunities that you can take advantage of down the road. I think you know under having a strong thesis and understanding business from 100 level perspective is critical, right? And so going to that thesis element too is how strong and secure are you in your understanding of the business, right? So if you said, "Oh, I'm in AI," well, what do you know about AI from a technical perspective? Really dive in deep because once again, it's a super competitive market. You want to be able to differentiate yourself, and you need to have that sort of foundational understanding and awareness around what it is that you're proclaiming that you're interested in doing. So, understanding how to run a business, how to understanding your cap table math, right? Is vital. And but also to that end, understanding how to run a business. And last is being a real expert in your said thesis, right? And your thesis and reducing your scope to something that you can properly, evaluate, learn, and grow in. So yeah.
Yeah. No. Amazing advice there. And also, one thing that really stuck out to me with that is you're basically talking about people that where operators used to be operators, right? Or like thinking
Yep.
like a previous operator.
Yep.
And that's why founders love, previous operators so much, or previous founders, is that they understand those nuances to running a business, especially a startup. And it doesn't have to be a startup, like even SMBs or whatever else it is, but just running your own business or, working in an entity that isn't just, centered around VC,
Right.
because that information and knowledge and know-how also applies to evaluating those companies and, due diligence, deal flow, all of that stuff. It all ties together. Right.
Yep.
And
100%.
so, that's the last that we have. I know we're close to the top of the hour here.
I appreciate it,
I want to
man.
thank you again, man, for jumping on. We'll definitely chop it up after this as well. Thank you again. And so
Thank you.
for getting in touch with you, how can everybody get in touch with you? After
LinkedIn.
Awesome.
LinkedIn.
Right.
LinkedIn.
So I'm going to post this in the chat for everybody's LinkedIn. Same thing for me, LinkedIn. If you've got my email, depends because I do get bloated with stuff, but LinkedIn is definitely the best way to reach me. And then also are going to be posting Founding Titans website link in here as well for everybody. Definitely join our wait list. We've got over 7,000, potential users. We've already got some LOIs with some communities that are going to be coming on. 19 partnerships, continuing to grow that with companies like Notion, Carta, Brex, all of that as well. Yeah, so we're doing a lot of really good things right now. We're trying to get everything launched with the platform. Everything is pretty much done. We're just waiting to get a couple of that early capital, but we are also moving things around to where we can launch a little bit faster without the use of those funds potentially if we need to. So definitely keep your eye on everything. We are also going to be doing our own newsletter, which is going to start coming out either today or Thursday. We're still getting some input from events that are actually happening around Austin and some other cities, as well as virtual events that we want to make sure that we highlight each week. One of those communities that we want to make sure we're highlighting is actually Fusion 42, with Kurt and Derek and all those guys as well, and Fiesta out here in Austin, Texas. And so I'm going to start highlighting a lot more things that are actually going on, also showcasing some of those partnerships and resources that we have to provide those to our users before everything actually launches as well. And so, definitely be on the lookout for all of that stuff. And so for next week's, for the rest of this week, we're actually meeting with CS Freeland, one of the founders of Texas Venture Alliance. We're going to be talking about the Texas Venture ecosystem. We're going to be talking about the Texas Venture Fest that's coming up soon. Some other secret and awesome things that she is working on as well. And we are going to be talking to Jeff Eversman, general partner with Longview Technology Ventures, on Tuesday. And then we actually just had our Thursday spot moved to October. So we are going to, we do have everything booked out actually until October. But if anybody that's viewing or has any recommendations for somebody for next Thursday, we'd love to speak to you. And then for anybody that's seen our previous lists, so John from Global Venture Network is going to be on towards the tail end of October because he's traveling in Europe as well. So definitely reach out if you'd like to be one of our special guests here. We're looking for, people that are either in venture capital, community builders, just doing anything that's of impact within the startup ecosystem. And, we'll discuss what topics we're going to go over and then, shoot everything out as well. All of our future events are going to be listed on Luma. We're starting to push those out a lot more as well, just so that everybody has the complete calendar. But we do have a lot of special guests for accelerators, VCs, some people that we're actually partnered with. We're just going to keep hitting the ground running. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time is when we're going to be doing everything. Thanks again, man, for jumping on. I know I kept you a little bit longer here.
No, you're fine.
Thank you, man.
This is good. Have a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.